Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at the Economic Times Sunicon here. I'm Shaburi Das, your moderator for this panel discussion. And today we are discussing women in the Indian startup ecosystem, breaking barriers and bridging the gender gap. You have already been introduced to our panelists here, so I'm not going to take up the time doing that again. I'm just going to jump right in and make this interesting conversations, get this interesting conversation started. So first things first, and this is open to all of you here. From an investment and funding standpoint, when we talk about funding gap, I think most of us don't even understand what the gap looks like. Like, do we have numbers for it? Can we quantify it? Is it just experiential? It's anecdotal? Like, what does the gender gap look like when you walk into a room as a female entrepreneur trying to raise some funds?
So thanks for having me on the panel. So just from a data perspective, and I know Suresh gave a lot of statistics there, but if you look at global numbers, 2% of startups which are women-led is actually raises funding. And when they say woman-led, it is not a woman founder CEO. Okay. The woman can be one of the co-founders in the team, right? So the real stats we really don't know for just women-focused companies.
Okay.
So global is about 2.3%. India is at about 2%. And the number has not changed in spite of the spike we saw in 2021 and the down we are seeing today. So I don't know if it's good or bad, because when India raised about 30 billion, we were still at 2%, the total funding, and now it's at about 8 billion, we are still at 2%. That is the one stat. Second stat is 15% of the total funding raised, this is not amount, number of companies, has a woman co-founder. And if you add these two numbers together, I think what comes out to you is that women are able to raise early stage funding, smaller rounds of funding. When the larger rounds of funding comes, I think we are at a disadvantage. That's what the stats shows us.
That is very interesting. And why do you think that is?
I think, and this is going to be a little controversial, I think funding is still a very bro culture. Okay?
Wow.
Yes, it is, right? Because I think early stage funding is a lot about just knowing the founder, right? Yeah. Knowing beyond what the company tells you, right? Betting on founders. And I don't see it very easy for women founders to integrate because there are very less, finally, and I think this is true across corporates also, right? Yeah. As you see women go up in the leadership cycle, it's just lack of networking opportunities. Yeah. And I have to tell you this interesting anecdote. Please. I was in HP in the US, and I remember Carly was the CEO at that point of time. Okay. And for once, all the women leaders said, I can go talk to her in the washroom, right? Just like say hello to her, right? Just that I think those are smaller elements, much finer details. But I think there is a challenge when it comes to women founders. And I would really say that every VC should be asked, how many of your founders are women founders? I think we should just start with that one stat.
VCs take note.
No, but then you should start tracking the numbers. I think we are not even tracking that metric today as an ecosystem.
Yeah, that is true. Which is why I wanted to understand, because like I said, I don't think most of us even know what the numbers look like when we say the gender gap, right?
Yes.
Then I also wanted to understand, does it vary depending on the industry? And again, it'll be, we have someone from mental health industry, we have someone from consumer, we have, readership and food. So does it vary depending on the industry? Have you guys experienced anything of that sort? Tech versus consumer product, or, anything of that sort?
I think in mental health, we almost have to do diversity hires for men as therapists. So,
of course.
I think, we tend to think that it's always about women being disadvantaged. I'll take a slightly more psychological approach to this, to say what is happening in our neurons, and not judge the men or judge the women. What's happening if we have this thing called a ventral vagal nerve, which fires when we feel happy, when we feel safe. We talk about psychological safety. in that sense of psychological safety, and we're all constantly driven between this longing to connect with each other and this need to survive. And you can imagine a VC there wanting to connect with a startup founder pitching to them, and also needing to survive, on the other hand, not putting their money in the bad place. So you have a lot of empathy for this VC. Now, what are the mirror neurons cues that you're giving out, right? If I'm there as an IITD grad, I'm giving him a lot of safe cues that, acha, IITD mein thi, I can call 5 people, they'll say, theek thi bandi kar lo. You know, if I'm not giving out those cues, I'm giving out other cues, they might have more. So there's a lot of conditioning that is giving them risk cues or safety cues. Now, in a healthcare industry, if you're doing a makeup brand or a sanitary napkin brand, a man might give out those risk cues. And in a mental health industry, similarly, a man might give out more risk cues than a woman. But in a lot of the other industries, you know, it's about whether you have people who are aware of their cues, able to transcend them, able to find that connection. The barrier is higher.
Understood. Thank you so much for that. Another question that comes to my mind is, does it get easier with each round? I'm looking at you, Meenu, because you guys have raised funds quite a few times. So let's start with you, and please weigh in. But does it get easier from round 1 to round 3, round 4? Does it get easier? Does it get better? Do the numbers, once the numbers start showing up, do they, for lack of a better word, they start taking you more seriously?
Yeah, I think I'll echo what Shanti said to a large extent, right? Which is that, so why does a problem exist, and why is it more difficult for women? I think it's also the understanding of the problem statement. So Bliss Club's an apparel brand made for women specifically. A lot of times when you're trying to explain how deep the problem is, it gets lost in translation just from gender to gender, right? If I'm explaining to a woman VC on the other side, and I'm able to say, hey, we make life-changing products, she may understand what I'm saying, versus the other gender where, you know, how can apparel be life-changing for women? And I think that's for me, my understanding of where the, where the fundamental problem is that if you can't explain the gravitas of the problem that you're solving, it's difficult. And of course, numbers help to back up the problem as and when you grow. So yes, I think early stage is a lot more difficult because you don't have as many numbers, you don't have all of the metrics, you don't have a team, you don't have I guess the numbers backing up the problem statement that you're trying to solve. But as and when you grow, I think half the story kind of gets told by just the numbers, and there's no denying that. And I feel that's what it is. I think we just need more women VCs to some extent who also understand the problem statement. But till then, we work on, we work harder at explaining it, and it's not been impossible at all. I think through the last 4 years, it's been I feel it has got easier and better.
Shelly, I wanted to ask you, Pratilipi is very interesting. It's neither technically consumer, not tech. So what's your experience been like when you guys were, raising funds?
Sure. So, for people here, Pratilipi is a UGC storytelling platform. It's a B2C internet company across formats, primarily focused towards Indian languages. I am an internally focused stakeholder here. I'm one of the co-founders, and CEO of the company basically takes care of the external fundraising. But whatever I know, I think we haven't seen in general that there are sort of any gender-first discrimination on any of the, we are Series E company. We haven't seen any sort of such discriminations happening. But yeah, there is definitely pre-PMF, post-PMF, huge difference, right? So we have been in market genuinely just twice, which is where, pre-Geo era, when there is not much knowledge in the market wasn't ready with respect to Indians, the next billion market, the term coined post-2017. So that's the difference. Once the business is out, your number speaks, as Meenu said. Right, so yeah.
Okay, that helps. Rashmi, Fresh Menu is everybody, we're all aware of it, almost the first food ordering platform. It's also in the tech space. what was your experience when you guys were, and you guys were starting it out back in the day, almost 10 years ago. So it wasn't as friendly as it is now, if I may call it friendly now. How was your experience?
Yeah, I think you're right. 10 years back, I think even fundraising or experience of fundraising, very few people in this country had. And for a lot of people, it was a very new thing to do. I think for Freshmenu and my journey, I think first couple of years, it is, while it was easier on some level because you had IIM Ahmedabad on your side and you were doing something which had quick numbers, but a lot of people would check in how long are you going to do this? This is very operationally intensive. You have a child to take care of. Who's going to be your co-founder? For a solo women founder, I think the questions or I think the skepticism that you face is higher, which I think if you've done for 10 years, now I think those questions are gone away. But first couple of years, I think those questions were real. Also about how would you build a team. For women leaders, I think a big skepticism that comes in is you would not have a team rally behind you. You'll not be able to manage without a co-founder. So I think the early years, the questions were very different. Now the questions have changed a lot more on business and performance in future because you've shown that you are resilient, you've gone through it. Food was also an industry which is completely male-dominated. There are no women working on the kitchens. So yes, I think the journey has been quite up there. There were times when I was very frustrated about why do I need to explain unit economics and why everybody would want to understand how deep are you in operations and can you handle this operation or can you handle the tech part of it or could you handle the delivery part? Like we had multiple layers and I think there were questions about each one of them. It's like, how are you going to do it? And even whatever answer you did, I think every time I left the room, I thought maybe I did not give a convincing answer because you're not the one who could, you know, put the light bulb in the room and you're the most charming in the room and you could get everybody to believe in you for whatever you've said. So I think there was a lot of time when I was hoping that some charm would come by and people would believe my answer because you've said what you wanted to say, but you could see on their faces that they're not believing it.
But to be fair, I'm assuming even the male entrepreneurs would be asked the same questions, right?
Questions are the same. I think the response to the answer could be different. One of my cues, after every meeting, if people tell you, congratulations, you've built a great business, it basically means, sorry, we can't be the investor. So every time somebody said congratulations, I knew it's a shut door. You have to wait for an answer where it does not start with congratulations, like, you know, we could discuss deal dynamics.
Okay, that's a very interesting anecdote. But, you know, Shanti, I also wanted to understand from you, from an investment startup point of view, right? Are we seeing the age of female entrepreneurs reducing, or has that changed in any capacity?
No, absolutely not. I think this generation of women founders who are coming up, I think they're a lot more ambitious, a lot more unapologetic about what they are doing in life, right?
Lovely.
Yes, yes, really. Actually, it has been very positive. I think and you know, just to point, I did not mean that we are getting discriminated, right? We are not.
Yeah.
It is just that it is harder to get to the point when you have a fair platform where you're being evaluated at the same level as what a male founder would get evaluated. Right?
Yeah.
And there have been studies which have shown, in fact, there was a very interesting study which said that the same idea presented by a woman founder and by a male founder, probability of the male founder getting funded is much higher than the woman founder.
Why is that?
I think these are more societal biases, right? Because I think there are questions which are not, where you are not clarifying a lot of assumptions they are making, right? So there are some basic assumptions the person is making when he's talking to you, which I have no opportunity to clarify those assumptions because they are not asking me those questions. Yeah. Those biases are inset in their minds, which I don't have the opportunity to clarify. It's like saying you can trust me. I mean, that's the baseline of founders, right? You have to be trusted.
Yeah, of course.
So you don't state the obvious, which puts you at a disadvantage. I think that is one. But I think just for all of us, I think a very good statistic which I have come across, which I use very often today, Kaufman did a study which said a woman-led company has a 45% higher probability of succeeding and a much lesser probability of shutting down, because the commitment levels are way higher and companies are built a lot more frugally when it's a woman's CEO.
Yeah, we don't start something we can't finish, generally.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you, I do.
Yes, yes.
But,
so I think, yeah, from an investment perspective, it is changing. Yeah. I don't think that we are where we were 10 years back, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the quality, like I have a company here, the woman is a tech founder. She's built the entire app.
Oh, wow.
It's like absolutely woman in tech. And I get so excited when I talk to them every time.
Yeah.
But I know they are still not ready to go to the investor. We are still working with them to get them ready, because just like what, you know, all of them said, I think once you're able to show the numbers, I think then the gender kind of falls away.
That would have been my assumption as well.
Yes.
Once the numbers start showing up,
absolutely,
it really
absolutely.
doesn't make much of a
Yes.
difference. Yeah. Joe, Meenu, I wanted to understand from you guys, your primary clientele is also women. No, not for you. I'm assuming for you.
Yeah, 100%.
I definitely have bought your stuff, so I know. Does that make a difference when you guys are walking into a room? I'll come back to you for this thing, but does that make a difference when you're explaining a product which you already said is kind of hard, and then you go ahead and say, oh, even 90% of my consumers are women. So if the problem is not being understood to begin with, how does the consumer segmentation also make a difference? Does it add to your woes?
So I think for us, we sell only to women because we build only apparel for women, right? And I think the question that keeps coming, which I think is because we only build for half the gender, is how big is the market? You know, how many women can pay?
Yeah.
We're also a slightly premium product, so how many women have deep enough pockets to pay? Of course, that's a question, and I think it's a practical question as well, because you're building only for half the population.
Yeah, you're only targeting half the consumer base, so to speak. Yeah.
Correct, yeah. But I think what's changing is really the fact that women are the ones who are spending, and women are the ones who are influencing spend as well, right? If you ask any man, and we have been doing like research on what are men shopping things that we build, you see almost 9 out of 10 men are either influenced by women in their shopping or have their wives, mothers, girlfriends shop for them, and that's a fact to a very large. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's at least coming back from our research and our consumer research. Maybe we can ask the audience after. And I think that's really what it is. I think women are, you know, gaining workforce. They are, you know, having deeper pockets. We have pockets to put our, you know, wallets in. And to a very large extent, influencing shopping to a very large, in a very large way. And I think that progressively is getting better. I think you see the number of startups building for women in India, knowing that, hey, this is a large enough market, there is a large enough problem to solve for them, is getting more. And I think that's the opportunity as well. There weren't enough women building. And hence there are more problem statements to solve for. And I actually believe there are a lot more, you know, startups coming up, a lot more women building to what you were asking earlier. Yeah. I think the ecosystem among women founders has become so tight. You know, we are really a very close set of group, and I think I've had the most honest and open discussions on that WhatsApp group that we have. And yeah, I think it's looking really bright.
Okay. We are closing in on time as well, and since each of you have in your own right, you know, done so much for this industry, I wanted to understand if you had to, you know, what would your 2 things be if you are starting out as a female entrepreneur and you're trying to raise funds? What are the things that you will absolutely keep in mind? You know, mistakes not to be done or things to be done? Like, what were the things that worked for you or didn't work for you? I mean, anybody can start. Yes, please. Yeah.
So I think, you know, first thing is it's not just limited to the founders. It's also, you know, very much visible in the leadership across. So even in the leadership, you know, so the change starts at home. do not do that, that just to have the diversity in, you are giving more opportunities to the women. But if you are coming across a true potential, it's really, really good that, so in Pratilipi, we have our VP Engineer, VP Design, VP Product, me. All of us are VP Revenue. All of these are practically.
Wow, okay.
So,
so representation matters, clearly.
Yeah. So that change when you, when this female leadership is running the functions, and when it works out, when the number speaks, it also gives the confidence to the juniors, people who are in the mid-senior level.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, please, Joe.
I think we started out with a very good rule which has really stood the test of time with us. When we looked at investors, we would walk out of the room and say, did this person make us feel more confident that we can achieve our goal or less? A lot of people will tell you that only with them you can be successful, or by the end of it, they have you doubting yourself. And even if they did end up giving you money, you don't really want that influence on your journey, because bad times will come. So those that really made us feel a real quantum jump, those we recruited. They might not have been the top name investors, but they're the ones that we needed and were right for us.
Okay, great advice. What about you, Shanti? What do you are on the other side. You're helping them. So
I'm also a founder, by the way.
Of course. Yes. But you have both the sides of the experience.
Yes. I think it is okay not to know everything. I think we as women founders, we try to know everything, answer everything, and I think you just have to be kinder to yourself, because I think as a founder, if you don't know everything, you can always say that, okay, I don't know this, but I'll come back to you with an answer when you're fundraising. I think that is one. And second is that I think we have to be a little bit more aggressive, or a little bit more opportunistic, or a little bit more unapologetic about our ambitions. I think sometimes I feel women founders don't really say, okay, I want to be a unicorn founder. I don't see that a lot. And I think it's okay to be ambitious. Right? So just that.
Out of curiosity.
Because I think we are living in the time when this belongs, the India ecosystem belongs to the founders today. And why not take a share in that market when we are able to do it, right? I mean, we are the only country which has a woman defense minister, finance minister, prime minister, president. True. I mean, we have at every level, we have a woman leader. Right? So there's no reason why we can't aspire in the startup space.
Okay, that helps. And Meenu, Rashmi?
Okay. One is, I think being opportunistic about networking and putting yourself out there. I think a lot of us think of not acting stupid or not wanting to say something which is not serious. I think it just needs better expression, and I think putting yourself out there, because a lot of your startup and your success is also about founders building themselves, their profile, or in the industry in terms of networking. The other thing that I feel could be very helpful and does not get talked about a lot, I thought it was very helpful, is having a circle of people, a few people who believe in you more than you believe yourself. Because there are a lot of bad days, and on those days you need somebody to tell me, I know you can figure this out. And I think it's a small group of people, but everybody, if you could nurture that group and trust that group to go to, because there will be bad days.
Meenu?
I think if I were to tell myself as well, I think something that women are built in intrinsically differently is just high degrees of empathy, right? And I think the ecosystem is new, it's young, and women in the ecosystem is definitely a new playbook, both for the investor side and for the builder side. And I think just being a lot more empathetic, both to yourself as well as to anyone who's understanding your problem statement is really important. And it's a playbook that you'll learn. And I think as women, we tend to take a lot of things too seriously. And I think being able to kind of just keep it aside and say, hey, we'll figure it out and we'll see how it goes. I think that's been something that's really helped me.
That is very helpful. Like, if I may add, personally, I remember when I was doing my MBA, I was told to be a little more androgynous the way I dressed. Don't be so feminine. I was like, I don't know what to do about that. But yeah, on that note, thank you so much, everyone. We have wrapped up just in time. This was an amazing session. Anybody who wants to talk to these amazing ladies, they can find them right here. Thank you so much, everyone. See you after lunch.